Natasha Atchley, a 19-year-old college student, was visiting her hometown of Livingston, Texas. On Saturday night of May 2nd, 1992, Natasha was having a great time at a party with her friends in Shepherd. Little did she know that this fun night would soon turn into her worst nightmare. Natasha left the party and never returned home. In the early hours of the next morning, her charred remains were found in the trunk of her car. What happened to Natasha after she left the party? Was her death a result of an accident, or did she fall prey to a heinous predator? Welcome to Real Crime Storytime, where we bring you history's most mysterious and chilling crime stories. Today, we will be looking at the disturbing case of Natasha Atchley, a case which is still unsolved and remains one of the greatest mysteries even today. Before we begin, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please hit the subscribe and like buttons. Now, without further ado, let's dive into the case. Shepherd, San Jacinto County, Texas. Shepherd is a city in San Jacinto County in the state of Texas. The town was named for Houston banker and landowner B.A. Shepherd, who came to San Jacinto County in 1875. With a population of 2,319, Shepherd is the 642nd most populated city in the state of Texas out of 1,752 cities. It was once a center for the lumber industry and even now remains an important market town in southeast Texas. Shepherd has a surprisingly interesting selection of local county parks and recreational offerings for those who love the outdoors, and that's why Double Lake Recreation Area, Humble Library, Wolf Creek Park, and Standstill Park are huge attractions of the town. Although when it comes to well-being, Shepherd is not amongst one of the safest places in Texas. With a moderately high crime rate, the chances of a person falling victim to a violent crime here are 1 in 341. Sadly, this is where the cheerful Natasha Atchley took her last breath, and Shepherd became a land of horror for her. This case took place in the early 1990s, and it's a story that will blow your mind. It all began when Natasha Atchley went for a night out with her friends and never returned home. Natasha Ann Atchley was born on May 11, 1972, in Angelina County, Texas, in the United States. She grew up in Livingston, Texas, with her mother, Karen Woodward, and 2 younger brothers. Natasha's father, Lloyd Nolan Atchley, separated from Natasha's mother, Karen, when Natasha was about 2 years old. He then married another woman named Patricia Walters. Sadly, Lloyd was killed by Patricia's brother Keith in self-defense. On July 24, 1980, Patricia and her brother got into an argument with Lloyd. It was night time when Patricia and her brother Keith left Lloyd at the Hardin Country Club. Lloyd followed them and stabbed Keith in his leg and Patricia in the right side of her chest. Lloyd was about to stab Patricia again, but Keith intervened and shot Lloyd dead. Patricia survived her injuries. During her senior year of high school, Natasha moved to Odessa, West Texas, to live with her grandparents, Nolan and Nell Atchley. She graduated from Odessa Permian High School in 1990 and then enrolled in Blinn College. Natasha then moved into an apartment in College Station and lived there with her roommates as she attended her classes at the Blinn College. Natasha's lifelong friend, Keisha Myers, remembers that Natasha was a pretty and popular girl back in school.
There was something about Natasha.
Popular, pretty.
She was also a great cheerleader and attracted a lot of attention. Keisha described her best friend as a spunky, wild, and fun girl with a free spirit.
She was a cheerleader. She just was wild, and she loved to have a good time.
Keisha and Natasha grew up in Livingston and were inseparable. Even when Natasha moved to Odessa during her senior year, their friendship remained strong because Natasha was a very loyal friend. Chad Woodward, the older of Natasha's 2 younger brothers, was 7 years younger than Natasha and really looked up to her. He defined her as an attractive and lively girl who was always surrounded by her friends. She loved spending her time playing the piano or cheerleading. Natasha's life full speed ahead was the only way Natasha knew how to live. In May 1992, Natasha decided to visit her family and friends in her hometown, Livingston. To celebrate her birthday, one of Natasha's friends had planned to throw a party that coming weekend and had invited Natasha as well. Natasha was excited to meet her friends after a significantly long time and looked forward to attending the party. On May 2nd, 1992, a Saturday night, Natasha took her 1989 Chevrolet Camaro and drove to her friend's party in 5 Acres and Independence subdivision in San Jacinto County. She reached there with a male friend around 9 p.m. and joined her friends at the party. Natasha had a pretty good time catching up with her friends over drinks. Later, around 3 a.m. Sunday, Natasha decided to take off from the gathering and head to her mother's house. She got into her car and left alone, only to never return home. On May 3rd, 1992, in the morning hours of Sunday, a man who was returning home with his grandson after spending time fishing at a nearby lake spotted a burnt-up car on a dirt trail in a woodland area. The car was covered in debris, and most parts of it were still on fire. Around 10 a.m., the man called the San Jacinto County Sheriff's Office and reported the incident. Within an hour, the deputy arrived at the scene. San Jacinto County Deputy Kevin Freed didn't think of the scene as something unusual or concerning. He assumed the car was either stolen or had been dumped there as part of an insurance scam. He immediately had the smoldering car towed to a Shepherd wrecking yard, where it was held pending further investigation. The first signs of concern arose when Natasha Atchley was reported missing to the Polk County authorities on Sunday night, May 3, 1992. The report was filed by Karen Woodard, Natasha's mother, who stated that her daughter was supposed to see her Sunday morning. Karen told the authorities that, as it was Mother's Day, Natasha had promised to stop by Karen's place. The Polk County authorities informed Karen about finding Natasha's incinerated car and then sent an investigator to take a look at the car and the area where it was found. The investigator went and even clicked a few pictures of the site and the car, but found nothing unusual. He said that the car was still smoldering. On May 4, 1992, Monday morning, Karen headed to the Shepherd wrecking yard where Natasha's car was being held and decided to take a look around the area herself. There had been heavy rainfall the previous night, and a lot of debris on the car had washed away. As soon as Karen saw the burnt-out shell of Natasha's 1989 Chevrolet Camaro, she realized that something horrible had happened and burst into tears. She still kept looking and started crying hysterically when she found pieces of Natasha's broken jewelry. Her cries only intensified when she looked in the hatch of the Camaro and saw what she immediately recognized as a human skull. The rest of the body's remains were found there too. Although the identity of the body wasn't confirmed yet, the police began the investigation on May 4, 1992, based on the assumption that the body was Natasha Atchley's. The case was assigned to Chief Deputy Tom Branch, who was going to lead the investigation. His team included Assistant Chief Deputy Raymond Edmonds, Sergeant Doug Conn, and Detective Joe Rhodes. Looking at the condition of the body, Branch was concerned about the extent the body had burnt to. A portion of the skull, along with some bone fragments, were sent to Harris County Medical Examiner's Office for identification. Dr. Cecil Wingo, an experienced forensic examiner from Murray County, took a personal interest in the case. He hadn't seen anything like this in his entire career and wanted to help as much as he could. Despite the intensity of the fire, Wingo even decided to visit San Jacinto County to look at additional evidence and assured everyone that despite the intensity of the fire, there was enough evidence to eventually get a positive identification for the body. Even though the body's identity had not been confirmed yet, Karen, Natasha's mother, knew it was Natasha's body. Karen had a memorial service for Natasha at Cochrane Funeral Home in Livingston on Saturday, May 9, 1992. On Tuesday, May 12, 1992, a report of the body's identification came through, and it was confirmed that the body was Natasha Atchley's. Medical examiners also determined that it would have taken a 1,500-degree fire burning constantly for at least 3 hours to have burnt the body down to the bones. The exact cause of Natasha's death could not be determined because of the current state of her remains. The medical examiners tried to reconstruct the skull to find out whether there was any physical trauma, such as a gunshot or a dent to the head, but nothing could be surely determined. A private graveyard service was organized for Natasha on Wednesday, May 13, 1992, attended by her mother, stepfather, an aunt, and the staff from Cochrane Funeral Home and Pace Funeral Home. Natasha Atchley was buried at Restland Memorial Park Cemetery, Livingston, Polk County, Texas, alongside her father, Lloyd Nolan Atchley. The autopsy report for Natasha was still pending, and so Branch and his team started the investigation by acquiring more information about Natasha's plans and whereabouts around the night she went to the birthday party. Although Natasha used to live in College Station, almost 2 hours away from her hometown in Livingston, she still kept in touch with most of her friends back home. She would often visit them during the holidays and when she had time off from college. About 2 weeks before Natasha was murdered, she had called her best friend, Keisha Myers, telling her that she would be visiting Livingston during the Mother's Day weekend. Natasha wanted to make sure that Keisha was there in Livingston when she would visit, but unfortunately, Keisha was not home at the time, and her grandmother answered the call, who later informed Keisha about Natasha's visiting plans. Keisha told the investigators that Natasha had said she had something important to tell her, and would do so when she arrived. Keisha never found out what Natasha wanted to tell her. Branch and his team then moved towards investigating the birthday party Natasha was attending. A crowd of about 20 people attended the party that Saturday night. The people who attended belonged to well-to-do families in Polk County.
There were some folks at the party that were family members of some elected officials and others in Polk County.
According to her friends, Natasha left the party in her car and went alone. It was around 3 a.m. on Sunday, May 3, 1992, when people last saw her before she took off. Branch figured out that it was a heavy-duty drug party. The people who attended went wild under the effects of hard drugs and alcohol. This definitely made things harder for investigators, but Branch was determined. During the initial days of the investigation, the detectives received a tip from a man named Anthony Cornelius. He told the police that Natasha had been in a physical altercation with a girl named Cindy Hennings at the party. As they were fighting, Jim Morton, Cindy's boyfriend, intervened and was seen kicking Natasha in the head. Natasha left shortly after this. According to the tip, Cindy, Jim, and another friend named Kevin Malone left the party soon after Natasha did, suggesting that they might have raced after Natasha and killed her.
I can't say for 100%, but the statement that I gave was, yeah, I did see her, but with the amount of people standing around, it was quite it was a circle of people.
Anthony wasn't even at the party. He was only passing through the area when one of his friends called him to watch a fight that was already going on, which included Natasha. Anthony said he couldn't fully be sure of whom he saw with Natasha that night. Both Jim and Cindy were arrested, but then Anthony soon recanted his statements and the pair were released.
I think it was down the road is where the gathering was. There's a bunch of people gathered up, like on that side of the edge of the woods.
Jim and Cindy still were considered potential suspects in the case, but there was no evidence to suggest that they had anything to do with Natasha's death. Since everyone was super high that night, Branch interviewed dozens of people who attended the party, some of them for 7 to 8 hours, but still found it extremely difficult to get any information out of anyone. They hardly had any recollection of that night, but Branch was quite suspicious that someone at the party was definitely hiding something from him. They tried questioning Natasha's old boyfriends as well, but nothing of any value came from it. Branch issued search warrants and, with his team, conducted searches of houses and vehicles of people in the surrounding area and anyone who was linked to the party. Even the searches didn't lead the investigators anywhere. Branch sent a few deputies to search for any clues in the area where Natasha's car had been found, which was only a mile away from where the party took place. The fact that the car had already been towed to a wrecker yard meant that the crime scene had been compromised before the investigation even started. The area where the car was found abandoned showed no clues as to what had happened to Natasha. The deputies noticed that although the car had been stuck in a groove, there were no signs of any footprints on the ground, and nothing indicated that a struggle had taken place. Investigators believe that Natasha was killed at or near the site of the party, sometime during the night or in the early morning hours of Sunday, May 3, 1992, and then driven to the dirt road where the car was set on fire. Even a week after Natasha's car was discovered, detectives were still finding bone fragments and teeth in her car trunk. Representatives of the state fire marshal's office took evidence from the car as well as from the area where the car was burned to a lab in Arlington for additional testing. A forensic examination of the car was conducted, and it was found that the fire had started on the front passenger seat. Investigators concluded that whoever burned the car had used an accelerant which contained a petroleum fuel mixture. Further lab reports indicated that the accelerant used was identified as drip gas, and as the area where the car was found had multiple old oil wells, drip gas was easily available. Branch commented that not everyone knew how to get drip gas out of the oil wells, and this narrowed down the suspect somewhat. The examiners also found that the fire was so hot that Natasha's body was essentially cremated. All that was left of her were a few scattered pieces of bones and her skull. The skull had fractured and then exploded in the intense fire, because of which it was impossible for the medical examiners to determine the actual cause of Natasha's death. Days passed, and there were no new developments in the case, just rumors flying around. Even though a lot of people had come out to show their support for Natasha, there still was talking and whispering. Karen Woodard, Natasha's mother, decided to address the situation herself. She told the public that all the rumors she had heard were false, and she only wanted the truth to come out. For now, she believed that her daughter's death was the result of an accident. Karen wanted everyone to learn from Natasha's case. Kids and drugs don't mix well, and everyone should be very careful about their children's company. Pressure was building up on Branch. He made San Jacinto County Sheriffs, Polk County Sheriffs, and the State Fire Marshal's office work together to get to the bottom of this case. Everyone was devoting long shifts, sometimes as long as 18 hours, to the investigation. Polk County Crime Stoppers, Inc. offered a reward of $1,000 in May 1992 to anyone who could provide them with information that could lead them to a potential suspect. Later, in December 1992, Branch got the FBI involved in the case. For a week, Branch, along with his team, had gone with the FBI agents for a retreat away from all the distractions. They studied the whole case again, looked at every single detail, and tried to put the pieces together. Branch even conducted polygraph tests on a few people which neither eliminated nor implicated anyone. Branch believed that even though the investigation was making slow progress, he was now closer to catching the culprit. As months passed by, Branch's confidence in the case kept sinking. With no new findings or any clues, Natasha's case slowly went cold, leaving her family and the detectives with hundreds of questions. From the start of the investigation, detectives were plagued by rumors about Natasha's death. Some people said she had been in a physical altercation with several people at the party, and they followed her and killed her. Some people even claimed that she had been killed by the son of a county judge, who then covered up the crime. A few people said Natasha owed money to drug dealers, and they were responsible for her death. Investigators worked overtime, trying to determine if there was any truth to any of the rumors. Most of these rumors turned out to be false, and the others were dismissed due to lack of evidence. One of the theories that lingered in the town for a while stated that Natasha got into a fight with someone at the party. The killer then threw her in the car and set it on fire. They were convinced that someone had already hidden in her car, and when Natasha was away from the crowds, he ambushed her. The fact that no footprints or tire tracks were found at the crime scene dispute this theory. Another theory that emerged suggested that Natasha's car had gotten stuck in the mud. There was also an assumption that since it rained heavily that night, her car might have gotten stuck on the isolated dirt road. In an attempt to free the car, Natasha might have revved up the engine, which could have caused the back tires to spin and sink deeper into the mud. Because of Natasha's intoxicated state of mind, maybe she couldn't figure a way out of the car when it caught fire. The car then sank to the point where neither of the doors could be opened and the windows were jammed. And so, Natasha got trapped, trying to find an alternative exit. She perhaps attempted to get out through the back hatch, but found out that the hatch couldn't be opened from inside the car. The dense smoke would have easily knocked her unconscious within a few minutes. It was assumed that the fire had started due to her repeated attempts to get out of the car. Excessively spurring up the engine may have caused the car to catch on fire. Natasha would have tried to exit the car once she saw the flames, although if this was true, the question how the accelerant got into the car still remained a mystery. Plenty of Natasha's friends and other witnesses admitted to the police that drugs and alcohol were readily available at the party. Natasha had been drinking and was high on at least 3 doses of LSD. There was a high chance that she became disoriented when she left the party and ended up on the isolated dirt road by accident. Since the deputies didn't find any footprints or tire tracks to and from Natasha's car location, it was unlikely that someone had followed her. This definitely wasn't a perfect theory. According to the initial forensic testing done on Natasha's car, drip gas had been used as an accelerant. The fact that Natasha was carrying drip gas in her car seemed unlikely to the investigators. Detectives who handled the case later on wondered if the initial testing might have been incorrect, as the technology and procedures weren't as advanced in 1992 as they were now. Unfortunately, there was no evidence left from the car that could be retested, which left no way of confirming those test results. Over 3 decades after Natasha's death, her case still remains a mystery. Every few years, a new detective would reopen the case and hope that something that was missed in the earlier investigation might turn up this time. Sadly, no new clues were found that could help solve Natasha's case. The detectives told Chad Atchley, Natasha's half-brother, that they haven't given up yet and are working constantly to get to the truth.
She said time and time again, this will be solved in your lifetime, and I strongly believe that.
The detectives also reached out to numerous people who attended the party 30 years ago to corroborate or refute any rumors about Natasha having an altercation. The interviews yielded no concrete evidence of foul play between the possible suspects and Natasha. Henning declined to speak with investigators, but her friend, Dana Birmingham, told investigators that she recalled that Natasha had taken off from the party and hadn't had run-ins with anyone that night. Birmingham also claimed that Morton and Henning left an hour after Natasha did. Natasha also reportedly had a run-in with Chad McGregor, another party guest. Interviews with Jim Morton, Kevin Malone, and Chad McGregor further supported the possibility that the death was not homicide. Their stories matched what they said in the initial investigation 30 years ago. Some are convinced that Natasha's death wasn't a murder at all, while some think otherwise. Retired Sheriff's Office Chief Deputy Tom Branch believed that he definitely interviewed the person that killed Natasha. With the amount of evidence he had, he could never figure out who it was. He felt as if he had missed something along the way. Natasha's loved ones have been fighting to get her justice and are not ready to back down. But there is a high chance that nobody may ever know for certain exactly what happened on the night that Natasha Atchley died. As of March 2023, the Texas Department of Public Safety and the Texas Rangers Unsolved Crimes Investigation Team still have the case classified as an unsolved homicide. Crime Stoppers is offering a $3,000 reward, in addition to a $15,000 reward being offered by Natasha's family for information leading to the arrest of the person or persons responsible for the crime. Natasha's untimely death left her loved ones confused and looking for answers. The passage of time didn't make dealing with her death any easier.
Once you've seen your sister's burned remains, no, you never forget that.
Her family and friends have fought for justice for 30 years and are still staying strong. Karen Woodard, Natasha's mother, lost her battle to cancer when it took her life in 2002. Karen did everything she could to keep the case in the public eye. She wrote frequent letters to local newspapers to remind people that Natasha's murder remained unsolved. Chad shared how his sister's death affected her. His mother changed after finding Natasha's remains. It completely broke her.
I just can't believe that that's what happened. There's too many other unexplained things.
He also doesn't believe that his sister's death was an accident. It was his mother's dying wish to find out what happened with Natasha. But sadly, Karen went away too soon. Keisha Myers, Natasha's best friend, recalled how Natasha once jokingly told her that she'd die young, and it was so unfortunate how that came true. Keisha was there with Karen when Karen passed away. Keisha spoke of how Karen cared for her like her own daughter, and Keisha's boys like her own grandchildren. Keisha's boys, including the one she was pregnant with when Natasha died, are grown now. He reminds her of Natasha, her intelligence, her sense of adventure, her self-determination. Keisha feels as if he was a gift from Natasha to her. Keisha still hopes that one day the truth about Natasha's death would come out. Natasha's family and friends have only longed for answers all these years. They want to know the truth behind Natasha's death. They want to know what happened to Natasha on that unfortunate night. Ever since Kelly Siegler, a former prosecutor, released episodes from the documentary series Cold Case, where she reopened Natasha's case to investigate it again, a majority of people have come to believe that Natasha's death was indeed a bizarre accident, although some still think otherwise. Natasha today rests in peace alongside her father, Lloyd Nolan Atchley, and her grandparents, Nolan Grant Atchley and Nell Atchley. What do you think really happened to Natasha Atchley? Do you think she was murdered, or was it simply a terrible accident? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, stay safe, and thanks for watching.